Good evening, or whenever you're watching this. John here, bringing it back to Disco Elysium. Now, when we last left off, our man Hobocop was a broken down truck away from being a walking country music album. He lost his memory and his badge, he sold his gun, he pissed his career away, his wife left him, and he's a now recovering alcoholic with a speed habit. Oh, and he might have to ask a murder suspect for help cleaning up said murder. Mondays, am I right? Now, those Union boys look like trouble, so we're going to pass on by like we got all day to come back to them. And we pretty much do, they'll be here a while. We've got a few leads to follow up with today, starting with the numbers on that armor from yesterday. Let's check in with Alice. She's been busy and has some info for us. The armor on the body part was part of a special order for a security firm who was contracted by a drug company during a war about 10 years ago. Like any reputable PMC, they've gone through a few different names over the years. Blackwater, excuse me. And they've deployed to a bunch of third and somehow fourth world countries. Curious detail there. It's likely it's followed the wearer ever since the end of the war in Seminane. Go ahead, get your giggle in over the name. I did it off camera. It's okay, I'm 15 forever too. Anyway, it'll be tough to get a hold of specific personnel records, but Esprit de Corps says she's up for the challenge. Go get him, Alice. I like her, she's nice. Maybe I just got a soft spot for redheads. Right then, you still got a long to-do list. You'll note also that the profile hasn't updated his name, even though the dream called him Harry. We're probably waiting to find a last name. We do have initials, but we'll get back to that. The next step, besides those Union guys, is talking to the head honcho himself. We'll need the dock workers to get the body down for a proper examination. Good morning, racist lorry driver. Just talk to this guy up here.
Scab?
Oh, hey, it's Cheech. Or, like, Cheech meets Diedrich Bader when he was playing Lawrence the Neighbor in Office Space.
I was just messing with you. No one's ever seen a cop, Scab. Imagine, you cops going on a strike, but then another cop comes in and says, let us cop for less money. Speaking of, what brings the RCM here, to the Wild North? Come to see the strife?
Manana is pretty much a lookout, and he's not going to stop us from going in. The large Seminese Nazi, however, is going to stop us from going in. We could theoretically just kick his ass, which, let's be real, isn't happening in a fair fight. The guy's just going to pound us silly. We could also become a Nazi ourselves, which is about as appealing as getting our ass kicked. There may be another way in, but we'll have to improvise. This guy's not going to roll on his boys, but he's a little too chill to be directly involved in the murder, so I figure there's no harm in being honest. I love the emphasis there. I have no idea what I'm doing. So happens, he's the guy that Kuno was talking about, asking about the armor. Looking increasingly like the locals did indeed scavenge the armor. The Union itself was trying to find it, possibly just to sell the parts. He didn't find out much, but apparently there are 2 parts still in the wild. The boots are on the body, of course, and Kuno apparently did kick the helmet into the water, so that just leaves the gloves and the armor. I'm not sure if finding both matters, but Kim seems to prefer setting a reasonable goal. If we can find at least one piece, we might get more information leading to the man's identity. We know the armor was sent to a combat zone, but not nearly enough about the guy wearing it. Thanks, Manana. We'll talk later. Oop, rigorous self-critique is done. The text on this hits pretty hard and shows our hero coming to grips with all the many ways he's failed over the years, big and small. Not all of us can relate to these specific things, but if you start digging, you know you've got some shit you're not proud of and try very hard not to think about. It's alright. We're trying, I know. In this case, forcing him to face those things ups the skill cap for pain threshold. Failed red checks, the one-offs, now heal us, which potentially means we're not at risk of dying from them unless the event explicitly kills us. Note that this doesn't extend to white skill checks, which we can always come back to, but it's still good to know we'll be able to roll the dice and walk away on both feet if it goes wrong. We're not explicitly told to, but it is a goal to somehow get the boots off. The goal itself seems to think Kim won't approve, so we'll assume this is optional. Anyway, let's at least look around up here and suss out our friendly neighborhood Nazi. What's good, big fella?
Your body betrays your degeneracy.
Yeah, Measurehead. His body totally betrays his degeneracy.
Are you admiring my morphophysiology? It must be frightening to stand in the shadow of this racial pinnacle. Be calm, I'm Sandwich. You are not in danger. Because you are not. And that is precisely the negligence that has led you to succumb to Al-Ghul. You reek of it. An invisible sword of Al-Ghul emerges from your throat. You cannot see it, but others can. It is making the woman in my company sick.
So he's a teetotaling Seminese supremacist. Charmed.
No, you don't. You need to get another drink. Occidental Haplogroup B4 is done giving orders around here. The influence of the Am Sandwich race is reign.
He's talking about cops, in case it's not clear.
Jerking motion. Signs of a late-stage neurodegenerative disorder. How far the Occidental Haplogroup has fallen. You were once a noble and powerful race. You gave the world eugenics, electricity, and powerful weapons of war like missiles and aerostatic aircraft. You dominated lesser cultures like the deformed Hemians and the inexplicably potato-obsessed Quakers. But now your ascent to the genetic summit has halted. You are obsessed with sadness and with frivolous pop culture. You will be superseded. Isn't that right, babe?
It is, baby, yeah. You know it.
If I can only get this guy to budge. Unfortunately, that is exactly what he's not going to do. And no harm in asking. You don't know till you try.
It is my task to keep the degenerate tongues from entering the army. Enough with this begging. You should leave the stage of history with dignity by inviting the other races to a great world war. Bring your troops to the Simonite Islands and to Boogie Street, and we will pulverize you. The walls will be lined with bottles of Al Ghul, your beloved beverage. Inside, we will store the odes to homosexuality called art, and your microcephalic skulls.
Methinks the Nazi meathead doth protest too much. Rhetoric is giving us the option of going along with the guy's race theory, which might let us inside. You know, at the cost of becoming just a little bit racist ourselves. Conceptualization gives us a decent chance of doing so, for what that's worth. Certainly much better odds than trying to cold cock him, but no. Instead, we poke a bit and try to learn more, see if there's another way through this. Riveting stuff. He seems to distinguish himself from garden variety bigots, for what little that's worth. Notably, he takes a dim view of the Hardy Boys back at the Whirling. Interesting detail I just noticed. The girl that talks is the one that's farthest away from him. It's weird. Now here's a more curious tidbit. The Seminese aren't considered white, which is itself interesting because it means this world has a concept of whiteness, making it very odd that a Seminese supremacist serves some very white Union leadership. Anyway, Measurehead seems to believe in Claire's leadership and seems to have a bone to pick with both communism and individualism, which makes it even stranger that he serves the Union. I actually like that line, mysterious fourth thing. That pretty much only works in a game with listed dialogue options. And here's where you start blaming the kids with their rock and roll. Buddy, just wait till they invent rap. Okay, I gotta read this line aloud. Offshoots of the Seminese people... Wait, hang on, I'm gonna do the voice here. Offshoots of the Seminese people invented disco while having sex under the influence of cocaine. God, that hurt my throat. I don't think this dude ever relaxes, even when he's asleep. Assuming he sleeps, which it's entirely possible he doesn't. And the picture gets even weirder when we learn he's not even from Seminine. He was born right here in Revachol, or from Koran apparently. He's the black white supremacist from the Chappelle Show, except he knows he's not white. Or not white in this case. Well, whatever, the point is he's a fucking poser. He's a wannabe that just happens to be a brick wall so nobody challenges him on it. Kim's setting us up for a joke here. I like the rapport we're building. We've got some East meets West buddy cop stuff going on.
We still need to get into the harbor. We need help with the tree situation. There must be another way.
Right, so there's no going through the giant Nazi poser, so we're gonna need a way around him. I stopped to ask the strikebreaker if he knows a way in.
Right to work! Right to work! Shame on you!
Physical Instrument thinks it might be worth a try, and if we fail, he might have some advice. A little bit of questioning further hints that something's up with this guy. He says he's from Jamrock, which is another district in Revachol, and he used to be, among other things, a bouncer. So he might actually know a thing or two about knocking that guy out. We'll keep that in mind if we get desperate. I poked this guy off camera before, and he didn't really have much to say, just an opportunity for Kim to lay into him.
Welcome to Revachol. Don't you welcome to Revachol me. My grandfather came here from a 3,000-year-old racist isolationist culture, while your ancestors came to this island a mere 300 years ago. Every school of thought and government has failed in the city, but I love it nonetheless. It belongs to me as much as it belongs to you. It's men like you who keep Revachol divided, making it that much harder for everyone to climb out of this post-war limbo.
Kim takes being a Revachol native seriously, and in spite of its dysfunctional history, he cares deeply for the city.
Oh, come on, man. I just said welcome to Revachol. It's a lorry driver thing.
I know exactly what you meant. You think my kind doesn't belong here, that I should watch myself and behave. But you see, I'm an officer of the RCN. It's actually my job to make sure you behave. I would advise you to remember that.
Yeah, tell him, Kim. I got you, brother.
You two make a cute couple. You know that?
I was saying the same thing.
Whatever you say, officers.
See, everyone can see it. And with that done, he does confirm the strike has lasted for months and the blockade is only a week old. He's hauling something dodgy, but I doubt it's something interesting. Really, nothing he says is all that important. On a whim, I try showing him the mug, figuring someone, somewhere, has to say something about it. I mean, the game made me take it once I found it, so it's gotta have some purpose, right? Probably not. It does, at least, give us some experience. One thing I'm noticing is that the audio mixing in this game is kinda funky. Like, the music and some of the voice work is fine, some of it's actually really good, but the volume levels are all over the place. With the music and industrial noise, I actually thought Measurehead's audio was cutting out at times. You'll see later when we confront the Hardy Boys. Some voices are quiet, others are very loud, and the music volume isn't terribly consistent either. When I'm editing these, I try to speak around the game audio. It's easier than trying to muffle the spikes without making the other parts of the game hard to hear. I just let Kuno know about Mañana for the 10 experience that's worth. I'll try the empathy check later. Maybe we can get a little more out of this twerp. More important right now is finding a way in, and I think I know where to try. What I'd written off earlier as a red herring was actually a door being blocked. And we gained a level from that. Score! We're facing some real tough guys now, and while I don't expect things to get violent, I do expect them to get intimidating. Composure will let us both stare down some Union boys and rock this blazer a little harder. Let's look around. Uh-oh. Electrochemistry smells amphetamines. Precious speed, so close I could just take— Oh, hi, Kim. Didn't see you there. Nope, definitely not thinking about using drugs here. No, sir. He gives us a little nudge to stay focused, and it's not clear we could actually make use of what's here. It's just sussing out Kim's stance on drug use. I suspect even asking him about it would be kind of an issue. Let's check out the roof. Can probably sell that later. Hey, we're at 20 bucks. That'll keep a roof over our heads for another night. Sadly, it doesn't seem like there's a way down into the docks from here. It seems like there should be. It's only a waist-high wall, and there's a platform on the left. We can interact with the cloak, which appears to be Hobocop's, actually. Damn, but he got around while he was jacked up. We could go for it, but it's not a small risk. Our savoir-faire is pretty low, and it's a white check, so it can still hurt the protagonist. Kim likes big machines. Hey, nothing wrong with that. There's a kid in all of us, man. And it's wondering where the hell it all went wrong. Conceptualization tempts us with untold goodies. It knows my real addiction, which is precious, precious loot. This is probably how you get in, but it looks like it's a one-way trip. We'll hold off on that for now. I want to talk with the Hardy Boys first. Make our way back to the whirling. There is a rooftop on the whirling. You can just see the outlined window as we passed, and I think that's the girl from the start of the game up there. Not sure how we get to it though. I didn't see anywhere on the second floor that led up. Must be somewhere else in the building. Her room, maybe? Alright, Kim, try to look cool.
Let me handle this. Detective disorientated. Are you still wondering where you are? This is Martinez, in case you've forgotten. I advise you not to overstay your welcome. That's right. I'm not a gardener. I'm a legal counselor for the Dockworkers Union. So let's get to it. You're looking for Titus Hardy. You think he has information that will help you? Maybe he does. That's Titus. Talk to him. But know this. I'll be keeping an eye on you. No strong-arming, nothing official. The district of Martinez does not recognize your authority to make arrests.
It doesn't matter if you recognize our authority. We will make an arrest if we have to.
Turns out our gardener from before is actually with the Union. A spy of sorts, and apparently a lawyer too. She makes it pretty clear we're not arresting anybody today, even though it's very likely these guys are our primary suspects. Authority and volition have a tug of war over whether they'll resort to violence if things get ugly. Probably not in the whirling, but they do look like they'd hang a couple nosy cops if pressed too far. The Union claims to speak for Martinez and at least acts like the law around here, so the friction is obvious. They take a dim view of the moral intern and the coalition that runs Revachol, which, by extension, means the RCM. Usually a bad idea to get baited into a political argument when confronting a suspect, so let's ignore that tangent for now and check these guys out. Couple things to click on here. Pardon me, Mr. Union Man, just gonna look around while you glare at me. The dialogue covers it up, but the thing I just clicked on says, "You see hawthorn bushes outside." Not sure what that indicates, but I can click on the window now. Perception might see something, but the check is basically impossible now. The penalty just says it's not time yet, so maybe I can check it later when they're gone. Alright, let's talk to this guy.
This is where you say your bit.
Detective?
Remember what I said earlier about the volume levels?
Hey, dipshit. You hard of hearing or something? The boss man's talking to you.
Just fucking with these guys a bit.
What, is he fucking kidding? This guy high or something? Hey, asshole, up here. We're talking to you.
We're looking for Titus Hardy.
Oh, this is about him? A real looker, that one.
You're sure taking your time. Waiting for him to get all right and pretty for you, huh? Oh, he's a real pretty boy by now. Real hot stuff. Time to go to work in the shit factory.
Easy, boys. These janitors have a hell of a job cut out for them. I mean, I wouldn't go in there for $1 million.
You might want to start asking your questions now. It's not going to get better than this.
For some reason this guy's a lot louder than anyone else so far, and not just because he's a good old boy in a power trip, the recording volume is definitely higher. Yep, Suggestion knows exactly who we're dealing with, and the boys are perfectly happy to live down to our impression of them. Suggestion adds that we can use all this. We know it was workers' boots that made the tracks in the yard, and we've got a count. 7 of them. It's a start. Oh, I can't not pick this. Fuck it, let's tell him we talk to dead people. If I can't beat him in strength, I'll win through the sheer power of being out of my fucking mind. And maybe love really did do him in. There's something to this, something more than just hanging some mercenary. Of course, our job gets a lot simpler if they just admit to it. There's a catch, and reaction speed helps us to notice it. And Elizabeth, with a little help from rhetoric, explains. If they come forward together, they dilute responsibility, making it hard to pin the crime on anyone specific. We don't have the means to bust them all, so we can't really do anything to them for now. Alan. I think that's how you say it. It's French Alan. Anyway, Alan had the gang tattoos. He's probably been in jail before. Titus here acts like he speaks for Martinez, and their actions that night were a crude form of justice. A few options here. It's plainly obvious he's calling the shots, but these are just little ways to needle him. I try again, seeing what happens if I point to Elizabeth instead. It's about the same, but note that Shanky cuts himself off before naming someone. We're also very clear that these guys are the whole of the Hardy Boys. Keep that in mind for now. So the mercenary showed up a few weeks ago, before the blockade, and at the same time Messier came in. It's probably no coincidence that the hanging took place right around when they shut down the harbor. Titus seems to think he was an ex-Special Forces guy sent in by Wild Pines, possibly to deal with the strike. They claim he got loaded, did some karaoke, and taunted everyone. Doesn't sound like they're completely making it up, but it's hard to say. Something's not right here. Rhetoric picks up something odd about Titus's claims. He starts with the most explosive charges and works his way down to harassment. Empathy's a little suspicious too. Now they're claiming he assaulted some girl during karaoke. While it's not hard to imagine a former Special Forces trooper being aggressive and threatening, the implication here is that Titus led with a claim he couldn't substantiate. There may well be a victim, and the deceased may be involved or even guilty, but we definitely can't take his word for it. Composure gives us a chance to see if anybody's cracking. A little bit of digging improves our odds. But we get a bad roll, so there's no putting additional pressure on them. So much for that point in composure. Can't go much further here. We do have the chance to assert our authority, but those aren't great odds considering. No, visual calculus is onto something. Like with Measurehead. We can't beat him, we'll go around him. Let's check those footprints in the yard again. The quest log does give us some other ideas, and I was thinking that if we can get to Claire, that might give us an edge over Hardy's group. But let's see here. Now that we've established certain facts, visual calculus gives us really good odds. Easy win. Time for CSI Revachol. We count 8 sets of tracks, all varying size of work boots. One definitely belongs to Titus, or at least is the same size he wore. It's telling that they didn't even bother to change footwear for this. Slightly smaller size on the second guy, either Glenn or Eugene. Hobnailed boots on number 3, maybe Alon. Regular boots on number 4, hint of cigar ash. Old man Theo, maybe. Number 5 is also either Glenn or Eugene. 6 is a little guy, light-footed. Shanky, probably. Seven's the same size as Titus, but heavier. That's gotta be the big guy, and the weight suggests he was carrying the victim. Which brings us to number 8. One more than the number of guys they had in the booth. Something's off with his right boot. It's been worn smooth. Rhetoric and authority note that Titus would keep a tight leash on his guys, so it's very suspicious that our 8th Hardy Boy is absent. You'll note a little text goof with authority there, though. Kim following us along with the tracks, seeing basically the same things. We single out number 8, and he's got some ideas who it could be. The boot gets pressed a lot. He has a brain fart at first, or possibly a Freudian slip. But it could be a driver, or someone who works heavy machinery down at the docks. Anyway, the tracks fit the picture we're building so far, except for this 8th person involved in the hanging. Remember when Shanky was about to mention somebody's name? Sounds like they had to ditch one of their guys, this odd soul as Kim calls him. Now why would they have to do that? Why indeed? He mentioned keeping an eye out around the traffic jam, so I checked back in with Tommy from yesterday.
Now it's turning into a kind of a snow limbo, man. What's on your mind?
Nothing new, however. It's entirely possible our 8th man isn't even a Hardy Boy. Maybe the guy that drove the truck bringing the Merc in, who knows. But this is starting to look very carefully choreographed, right down to confessing as a group, so the details matter, especially the ones they don't want us to see. Hey Granny, you see any crime around here? No? Alright, good talk. Yeah, we're gonna have to ask around a bit more. Poor mailbox. Can't head pat it again, certainly not gonna kick it. Our other lead is the possible witness in the alley, who might be able to confirm a head count and what he saw that night. Just stopping and talking to this lady.
Yes, hello? Me? No one. I'm just a working class woman. Not all the time. Right now I'm browsing books. If a working class woman needs something to read, it is. I know you are. What with?
Yeah, compare the volume here with that of Titus. She's not just quieter spoken, it's like she's physically farther away from the microphone, or the gain is turned down or something. Probably nothing here. Never mind, miss. Carry on with your reading. I figure it's a good idea to check in with Messier. We still need Hobocop's badge, but she might be able to tell us more anyway.
You're back. Good. What can I help you with?
Or she might not. But learning about the world is an objective, and we do get experience for it, so what the hell? Let's ask her about the times. She's going on about the revolution, just another war like the last one, and only the small details ever really change. Now, this is the first we're hearing of the World Revolution, I believe. It sounds like this happened all over the place. The revolution here in Revachol overthrew the ruling dynasty, but it sounds like they lost the greater conflict in the end. Some of the old liberal order survived, if not exactly won, and was co-opted by the coalition. Messier finally gives us a list of names in the coalition, the people that ultimately put down the revolution. Her stance on this is curious. Empathy suggests she views the intervention as a necessary evil. A moderate approach to head shooting indeed. We're really more about center of mass in the RCM. Though one of my thoughts says I hit a guy in the groin once. That couldn't have been easy. The revolution itself was about 50 years ago, and the spark that started it all was a pandemic, here in Revachol in a place called Grad. It might just be my inner bourgeois talking, but I kinda like Joyce. We might not see eye to eye much, but there's a realness to her I can appreciate. Esprit de Corps has a flashback of the precinct. The years following the revolution were a nightmare, and we see more parallels with the First World War. Lots of urban fighting in the 20s, only for things to settle down a bit in the 30s. Revachol became something of a tax haven. The easy money, and the cocaine, led people to think the good times were coming again, but the bottom fell out in the 40s, and here we are. Welcome to reality, baby. Could have been worse, but she's clear-eyed about everything that happened and is old enough to have seen at least most of it. Tempting to lean into the plague thing, but it feels like that's just the match that set everything off, and not actually a kindling ready to burn. Hoop, political question time. How do you stop a pandemic in its tracks? Little tweaks, scorched earth, socialism, or inevitability? Quite the spread of options here. Realistically, I don't know how much any of this would have helped. Eventually I pulled the trigger on socialism, or what I think it is, though apparently the people backing the king thought so too. It just sounds like a madness waiting to happen. If not a plague, then something else perhaps. Kim was 2 at the time, lost his parents in the revolution. Esprit de Corps gives us a curious option to ask about something. Not bad odds. But I blow it this time. Oh well. Anyway, we got a shiny new skill point, and I decide to hang on to it for now. Well, that killed a little time, but our witness won't be home until 9 in the evening. Let's look around a little more.
Everything's still cool here, officer.
No harm in asking if any suspicious drivers have been milling around, but my guess is the Hardys had their 8th guy killed for some reason. Maybe he embarrassed the group, or was some kind of risk somehow. Fuck yeah, trash gloves. Looking around near the pawn shop. Hup, the water lock's out of commission. Looks like we're not going any further south till tomorrow. Guy taunting his friend on the other side of the water lock, which is currently jammed open by a fallen billboard. Some hot water slammed into it and it fell into the canal. Probably does nothing, but knowing our luck, black should make things worse somehow. So we're effectively cut off in Martinez until the lock gets fixed or the strike ends. It's like Hell's Kitchen in Deus Ex, and this game really is giving some of the same vibes. Just ducking into the pawn shop to sell that postcard. We'll need every dollar we can scrounge up for tomorrow.
Hello again. How can I help you?
But yeah, I know you're not running around installing augmentations or shooting terrorism and then shooting all the conspiracies, but in terms of world building, the history, the overall depth of interactions, the political elements, the way people notice things you do, the sense that everybody is lying to you, it is absolutely giving me some of those same feelings. This is reminding me of Deus Ex in all the ways that really matter, and I'm really enjoying this so far. I think that'll be it for tonight. Next time we'll see about getting into the harbor, try not to become a racist in the process, perhaps pass some time so we can meet our witness, and maybe, just maybe, get our cloak back. Until then, thanks all for tuning in. See you next time.